I just had a joke in my head right when we went to start. But I have somebody that's very, very fascinating on the show this week. And I'm excited because you guys know that I bang on about this country of Canada, the authoritarian, tyrannistic, communistic place I currently find myself residing in due to my child living here. But I'm here regardless. And I wanted to start talking to the actual individuals who would sit down and have a real conversation with me that were in or are in government. And let me tell you how little that means would actually have a conversation with me, because God forbid we said the hard thing out loud. But I have an MP, a former MP that was an MP of an area I grew up in, which is amazing because she knows everything about where I am from. So I have Michelle Ferreri. I always want to say Ferrero Rocher. I like, my brain goes immediately there. We just made the joke about that, but that's the truth. And I want to have you on because I think you're, now that you're out, I feel like we have some other things we can talk about without worrying about your constituents.
Hear, hear.
Right?
Hear, hear.
Okay,
yeah,
my dear.
It's great to be here. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you're here. I don't anticipate this to be the last time, but I do want to understand why in the absolute hell you decided politics was the route for you, coming from a place like Peterborough, Ontario.
Yeah, listen, I think I felt like a fish out of water from day one. Like, I've always been, I love how you talk to your cats, same way I talk to my animals.
I just pointed at them for those who didn't see.
Yeah, it's like, you know you're not supposed to do that right now.
Yeah.
Listen, I think I worked in media and marketing and community advocacy, and I just, I like to help people. And COVID hit, and I was doing my marketing and live show, and it was a tough go. And somebody had approached me and said, you should run. It happened within, honestly, 2 weeks. And I was
wow.
I would never run for politics.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I would never do it. You instantly lose trust. You instantly lose credibility. You're instantly the devil. I said, no, I'm not doing that. And my family and everybody was like, Michelle, I actually think you could win. I actually think you could do this. And I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, So obviously, you know what happened. I ran. They convinced me. So I went, and then you have to win the nomination, which is a whole other can of worms, which is actually even worse, I think, than the actual election, which is good because I think it's a very healthy way to get your skin thicker. Because you're fighting within your own kind of group, like it's like an internal race. And then so I won that, and then I won the election in 2021 against a minister, which was a really big deal. So we are a bellwether riding. So Peterborough is, what that means is, like, whoever wins Peterborough typically wins the country. So in 2021, when I won, I was the first MP in 41 years to do the opposite to the bellwether riding. So I won as a conservative, but the Liberals formed a government. And I unseated a cabinet minister with no political experience, really. I mean, I used to cover politics when I worked in media, and I used to interview politicians, but that was really it. And my mandate really was mental health and addictions. Like, so the big thing that drove me was I kept seeing the addictions on our street, the homelessness on our street. Like, our city is unrecognizable, which you and I have talked about. Like, you're being from that sort of Trenton, Campbellford area, like these small towns that were so safe and so, like, how's Bob? Oh, Bob's good. I don't know. Did you hear about Donna's cat? Like,
yeah.
And it just went like unrecognizable. Like, I never saw a person overdosed on the street as a child.
No. Or a homeless person.
No. Like, even when you went, no. And like, if there was somebody, it was like there was one person and they were kind of in and out and they were kind of couch surfing, but they weren't like living on the street in fecal matter, hunched over like a zombie. Like, and so I knew, and I have a very big thing that I feel like I've been saying since I was 10 years old. Why are we not studying the brain? Why do we, when we have somebody who has schizophrenia, why, when we have somebody who is struggling with mental illness, are we prescribing them pills without having a sweet clue in the world what the hell is actually wrong with their brain? It's like, we look, if you break your arm, you look at the arm, you do an x-ray. But in the world of psychiatry, it's like, here, good luck. I'm actually going to give you the pill that might even make you worse and more psychotic. And it makes no sense to me. And then we blame the person that goes out and does crazy, violent things because the society has failed them. And so I have this perfect, beautiful vision in my head of these mental health wellness hubs of like greenery and teas and human contact and blankets when you walk in, and seeing you and understanding you, and amazing machinery. And that's what I wanted. I wanted this across the country. I wanted mental health, and I don't like the word institutions. I wanted that across this
Yeah,
country.
but we have to acknowledge that we need these institutions, because leaving
Correct.
people on the street, I mean, look at River, is it called, I think it's Riverview in Vancouver. The east side of Vancouver didn't look like that when I moved here in 2011. It was safe to take my kid to Vancouver, and then we closed all of the mental health facilities and said that we don't need to be operating these any longer.
So and the reason they did that, so I'll use Peterborough as an example. So we
Yeah.
had what's called the Nichols building in Peterborough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awful how we did shock therapy. We did these horrible
We
treatments. One
still
flew
do
over
shock therapy.
I know.
Okay.
I know. But it
Okay.
was like these one flew over the cuckoo's nest sort of like put this spotlight on, holy shit, we are really vile to people who are struggling with mental illness, and we don't actually know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah.
And nobody knows how to manage them. So we're going to lock them in a room, and that's going to help. Okay, wait, that costs too much money. So what we're going to do is we're going to centralize it. We're going to put it into one hospital because it's healthcare anyway. Okay, most people said, okay. But the problem is they didn't move those resources over to the hospitals.
No.
And now, Bill Burr does a great skit on this. He does a great skit on this. Bill Burr is the best at addressing like these really complex, serious issues like abortion. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen his cake bit.
Yeah,
It's so good.
I mean, he used to be great, and now he's drank the Kool-Aid and lost his damn mind. So I just kind of exist in his old comedy, like it's like a time capsule.
I still think he's still there, but I haven't watched him in a little while, so maybe he has. I don't know.
I mean, it's the hard left wife that you can only get along with your spouse if you agree, right?
Right. But he does this great skit. If you look it up, like he goes, there used to be one crazy guy. He was on the corner, and you got out of the van and you put him in a white coat. Now it's like what happened? Mental health now lives on your street, right? It's always been there, and it's been there since the beginning of time, and it will be there forever. It's how we manage it that has failed society, and people don't want to deal with this. They just don't. And now what's the solution? Oh, MAID.
Exactly.
MAID.
And this is one of the things I obviously wanted to have the MAID conversation with you, but I don't want to focus heavily on that just because I have a series on that, but I do want to touch on like how this is impacting the country, because this is one of the things that we are seeing. We are unwilling to acknowledge that Health Canada has not only okay, so a couple things. Health Canada right now, and has been since 2016, been having backdoor conversations with Dying with Dignity. We have some scathing information about the new health minister. And this, just for those that are referencing, it's June 3rd, 2025. This is going to come out in like 2 weeks. But they've already been lobbying the current new health minister and emailing their constituents and letting them know that they're having these conversations, and that they're aware of the dis or misinformation, which they call myself and other people that are pushing against it. And so Health Canada, regardless of what our government says out loud, when they're in the House of Commons and whether they're getting a camera put in their face, they're bold-faced lying, because the Journal of Death and Dying came out and stated what Health Canada's plan was. And they plan to euthanize 14.7 million Canadians from 2027 to 2047 instead of providing health care. They also are about to save $1.273 trillion. And included in that is not only the mentally ill, the addicts, and the homeless, where they specifically lay it out and show you how much money and the number they plan to euthanize, but they also plan to euthanize the Indigenous to the tune of over 300,000 themselves alone in that 20-year period. So Health Canada has not only lied to you and to the rest of the people in government, but they have been planning this and rolling this out, and they have no plans as of 2018 to slow down the rollout toward mental illness as well as mature minors, which they are lobbying currently to make it lower than the age of 12 and not to be have parents included. So it's not a shock to me that the slow rollout has always been close the facilities, provide the drugs, let the people die on the streets, because then they get to be the saviors and come in and say, here's the solution to the problem. If we get rid of them, then we don't have to pay for them and they're no longer a burden on our society. It's not a surprise to me. But for those that don't know, you sat on quite a few committees when you were in your term.
Mm.
You were on the Justice and Human Rights, the Statutes of Women, and the Human Resources, which included the skills and social development, as well as the status of persons with disabilities. And the reason that is so important to highlight is the new government that I have a hard time calling it a government. I know that's rude and disrespectful, but I've never seen such an uneducated, as well as a ill-informed and no references whatsoever cabinet put together by Mark Carney, including the Veterans Affairs Minister, which used to own a clothing store, by the way, which is cute. And she's now the Associate Minister of National Defense, which makes me feel like we're about to go to war, people, with nobody to fight for us. So when you're talking about disabilities, he doesn't even have a minister for disabled people. And I can tell you in the MAID groups, people are losing their minds because I'm 100% disabled. We have disabled individuals with now zero representation, but we have representation for the LGBT plus community.
Yeah, there's a lot you just said there that I would unpack. Like
Feel free
a
to
lot.
unpack whatever you would like.
So I think there's a couple things that I still circle around being on the inside. I do think that some people, I think this made conversation and growing up with, we all know somebody who struggled or watched somebody. It is so much, it's not just the person suffering, whether it's addiction, whether it's schizophrenia, whatever it is. And when you can't get help, when you can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, you start to rationalize that MAID is a compassionate solution.
Mm-hmm.
The push I have back to people is no. It's follow the money. So when I sit down at the table and you say, okay, listen, our healthcare system, which let's not call it healthcare, it's sick care. That's all it is. It's never been healthcare. It's never been preventative. We've seen that over and over and over again. You don't go to do things to make yourself healthy. You go when you have some kind of sickness that's already progressed to the point that sometimes it's not even irreversible.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they sit you down and they say, okay, and people have to remember, like, a minister is just a person with like this much information. Like, I think that's what I learned more than anything. When you're sitting at this table and you're like, well, they will know. Well, they will know. And then one day you're at the table with they and you're they, and you realize it's just people.
Right.
And so somebody says to you, and you've got 25,000 things on your plate. You have a family at home. You have this, you have all of these things. And they say, listen, this is a super compassionate, way to approach this, and it's also going to be able to save us a ton of money that we can put into the front line. Like, I can see how everything happens. Is there someone on a bigger level, on a higher level with a bigger diabolical intention? Possibly.
Yes, and I can prove it.
Possibly. And I've always said this: power and money don't change who you are, it exposes who you are. And there are a lot of traumatized, unwell people who are in charge of very important things.
Right. And that's what it comes down to.
And so the conversation, this is such a big thing to dissect, Kelsey, because it's like, if you don't teach children to think and ask why? Like, there's this one thing I always come back to. Okay. So I did like self-reg training, and it's like, why and why now?
Right.
Why am I behaving like this? So behavior is communication. And why now? And it's the more you know, the darker the world is.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, darling. That's not a saying for no reason.
And quite frankly, what I learned on my journey was people do not want to know the truth. Because it's friggin' hard and it's depressing. And people don't want to believe that there are bad humans. I was one of those people, Kelsey. Like, I remember when I got elected and I was like, well, you know what? Being a prime minister's got to be a really hard job. That's got to be really hard. Like, they're doing the best they can. And then you get in there and it's such a toxic sludge. And people are so mean to you that you start to be mean back. And then you're stuck. It's like a bad divorce. It's like a really bad divorce where both people resent more and more and more. One person won't bend a knee. Nobody says, I'm sorry. Nobody can pull back. And then this whole joke of like, well, if you just work together, there is no working together.
No.
And nobody
No,
wants to
it's not.
believe that. Like, it's a very sad place, because I always go back to this thought in my head. In the 1980s, you remember you turned on the TV and they had the starving African children, and you were just like, oh my God, change the channel. I do not want to look at that.
Right. Or the dog commercials with Sarah McLachlan.
Yes.
Like that. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And people don't want to look at that. Yesterday, I just did a video before I did this podcast with you. I'm driving down the street and there's a guy and he's completely slumped over. His face is like shoved into the sidewalk. I don't know if he's dead or if he's just passed out. And people are just walking by, because guess what? That's the new normal in Canada.
And when you say it, though, it's a different thing, because when people like me say it, who like I said this to you before, most Canadians don't watch my show. That's the truth. It's very hard to find for Canadians to get access regularly. They'll get a thing that says they can't share it, or that they can't watch it, or that, it's Bill C-11. It's insane. And so the Americans that watch the show, or the UK or Australia or everywhere else that it's watched, they email me and they go, what happened? How did it get this bad? Where is it? What happened to the adults in the room? And
One step at a time, Kelsey.
It's a slow drip. It's the frog. Yep. And that's been my conversation time and time again. I remember the last time I voted and thought it actually mattered, and that was during Harper. And that was 2008, 2009, when I cared, because I felt like the country still had a space. It still had something different. We had what's called an identity. Canada now, I mean, this first quarter, we took in over 800,000 people, and I believe over 80% of them were from India. The country is not the country. It never has been. It hasn't been since 2015. And we've eroded what it meant to have the adults in the room. So when I see people that are now in places of power, whether that's in election cycles, whether that's in people that are running, and I know who they are outside of that, I can't trust that the country is going somewhere good, because those people aren't good people on their own. So what are they going to be with senses of power and control, which is a concern to me, because for someone like you, who did this job for a fairly extensive period of time, how do you rationalize with what you're seeing now that you're not in anymore? How do you wrap your brain around staying in the country after knowing what you know, knowing that the inside is not only broken, it's absolutely shattered?
Because I still think the people have the power, but they don't know they do. And I've always thought that. And I always go back to the movie A Bug's Life.
Yeah.
We are the ants. And that's why I always felt like a fish out of water in that House of Commons. I never connected with people who love titles, or I'm this person, and because I have this title, I am now all of a sudden, poof, I'm somebody else. No, you're not. You are who you are from who you are. Like, that's why when I lost, people are like, oh, you must be so sad. I'm like, the title doesn't define me.
Right.
I am who I am, but I still believe, Kelsey, and maybe it's just the optimist in me, but I believe we are actually all the same at the end of the day. We all have the same damn feelings. We just project them in completely different ways. And I do think that the people have the power. I believe that, but they don't know they have the power. And the reason is because they're so damn busy and so distracted trying to survive. They can't get involved. They can't pay attention, because they're too busy trying to take care of they're making dinner. They're trying to get their kids from school. They're trying to pay the bills. They're struggling because they had to take a job that they don't really love, but they're paying their bills, and they're in autopilot, and everybody's just kind of struggling along. And I think once you realize that life is actually supposed to be a struggle, and it's like, this is my joke, I'm like, 70-80% shit, 20% great. And you constantly are chasing that. And it's the same with parenting. It's the same with everything. And it's these little moments. And so I feel the frustration. I hear it from you, because I heard it. I would knock on people's doors and they're like, who fucking cares? Why would I vote? You're all the same. And blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, I'm trying to do something here, man. Like, Jesus. Like, you would take it personally, but I understood it, because I was on the other side of the door way more longer than I was on the elected official side of the door. And the trust is so eroded, and it's like, what's the point? And you get to that dark place of what's the point very, very quickly. But I don't know. It's not in my DNA, Kelsey. It's like, the point is you keep showing up and you keep standing up and you keep speaking up. That's the point.
And I hear you. I hear you. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Row Nutrition. If you guys have not heard of them, please stop what you're doing right now. Go over to their website at Row Nutrition and take a look, because you guys know more than ever, I care so deeply about my mental well-being, my physical, and my TBIs. I do everything I can to look after my body, whether that's cold plunge, ketones, or otherwise. But Row Nutrition is my newest additive, and I have to tell you, I am feeling like money. Let's talk about it. If you're struggling with brain fog, you are slower to recover at times, and you're feeling more down, even if you feel like you're doing everything right, like I was doing, this is what you need. Let's talk about why. The reality is, when you hit your 30s, I'm going on 36, your body's NAD levels, a critical molecule that fuels your energy recovery and brain clarity, they drop by half, nearly half. No wonder we're all burnt out. And that's exactly why I partnered with them. They use liposomal NAD. And let me be completely straight up with you and honest, it's incredible. Normally, you need to go and get NAD IVs for this result, but not with Row. I am experiencing sustained clean energy, sharper focus, which we all need, and faster recovery. I don't have any jitters. I don't have any crashes. And this is an energy like others that keep me performing my best. It's critical. Let's talk about NAD in general. It fuels your mitochondria. If you guys don't remember high school science, that's what we're talking about. That is the powerhouses in your cells responsible for your energy and clarity. And like I said before, the only real way to get it before was really expensive, uncomfortable, which I've done, IV treatments. But Row Nutrition has completely changed the game with their new technology. No needles, no downtime, just maximum absorption and results. I have felt the change, and you guys know I only use products that I actually use. So I want you guys to go and give us one a try. It's risk-free. So it is backed by their 60-day money-back guarantee. And I believe in this enough to give you guys 20% off. So go head over to rownutrition.com/discount/Kelsey20 and use your code Kelsey20 at checkout. Now, the one thing I want you to understand is that when you do this, you're not just doing this for you. You're doing this for everyone else around you, because when you feel good, others around you start to feel just as good as well. So go check them out. But part of the problem that's happened with Canada is if we weren't, which provable, documented, and we can show you, if we weren't already sold to the Chinese Communist Party, if we didn't have financial institutions being bought and paid for, if we didn't have people calling for other peoples to have bounties on their head from the Chinese Communist Party, if we did not have people being put on planes quietly while the Chinese Communist Party had police stations in the country, taking Chinese dissenters out of the country, if we actually didn't have that happening, I would agree with you. But that's not where we're at, right? Because when a communist country comes in and starts training with your military in 2021 at Connaught Range and Salt Spring Island quietly, and they're paying your ministers, and you're not expensive to buy. You guys are roughly around $10,000, $15,000. You're not very expensive to get your votes. My point is, if we didn't have that happening, I would agree with you. But Canada's not a democracy. It has never been. Part of the way we vote is just very delusional. So let's touch on that, because I believe Canada can still be Canada, but here's the problem. By the end of this year, based on immigration numbers, Canada statistically is no longer Canada or Canadian citizen dominant. Not only is that, we have 96% of our population that are choosing to use MAID. Out of that stat are white Canadians. So there is what people want to call the conspiratorial side, like the more Alex Jones side, which is like the Great Reset, which is no longer a conspiracy when you look at data. Right. And then you also have the, we don't need to check passports, affiliations, and other things, like the extremists that live, Islamic extremists that live in White Rock that Yasmin Mohammed has pointed out, shown here, CISAs are involved. They all know about them. But when you allow people to come into the country and override and erode what it means to be Canada, And then the majority of people that are running or in places are of Islamic faith, and Brampton are places calling for things like Sharia law. I'm sorry. We're long past what it means to be Canadian. I do believe we can all stay here.
We don't even have any we don't have a national identity. That's
not anymore. I mean, Alberta does.
Yeah.
Alberta does. I mean, and so, so let's talk
Quebec. I would say Quebec does too.
It's not one I would want. Let's start with that.
But it's still there.
They're there, but they're the only people that are willing to stand up to things like the Islamic faith and say no more hijabs, no more this, no more that. And we don't get to call them racist, right? Because that's okay for them to do it, but not the rest of it. So talk to me about the democracy side of things and explain why this is so complicated when it comes to, because we don't vote for a president. We vote for a party. And that is why this is not a democracy, because these can be bought and they can be shown. It's very easy when our own people are allowed to take their ballot boxes home at night.
Yeah. Well, that was, that's crazy stuff. I guess there are people on the inside who know everything you're saying. And I guess that gives me hope. And, I struggled with a lot of...
Can you tell me how, though? I'm being serious. How? Because I would love to understand how.
How they know?
How you can have hope when this is where we are. Because I would like to know, not only for myself, but for the other Canadians that come to me and go, do we leave? What do we do?
I guess, I believe hope is the glue that allows you to go on when you think you can't. And I think it's like, I think maybe it's self-preservation. Maybe it's like delusional. Maybe it's the thing that you're like, But I think, I think we are a system of patterns. I think humanity has repeated the same patterns over and over and over again. And I don't believe anything under the sun is actually new. Right. And I think a lot of the conflict you see that is on our streets and has happened multiple times before, many, many times before. It's just more intense. It's like the drugs. We've always had drug problems, but now the drugs are like, holy shit, those can kill you way faster than that, bump of cocaine you were doing in 1982 in the bathroom. And I think sometimes when we get so sucked into something that's this big, that's it. That's all our mind focuses on. And I think that's why, social media is a major problem and a major asset. Yeah. Like anything. Your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. But when you go and you have these little moments with a child or a dog or a pet, and you're like, oh, like I always go back, I have these little things, right? Like in the movie Vanilla Sky, it's the little things, there's nothing bigger. And I think sometimes we get sucked in to the darkness, and there is darkness. There's a whole shitload of darkness. But the only way to understand the darkness is to have been in the light. And the only way to understand the light is to have been in the darkness. And, this is as old as time. There are people inside politics who are, quite frankly, useless. And they are useless. Which is not as bad as dangerous.
Useful idiots are just as dangerous.
I would put a useless person as seat warmer, like in a sports team.
Okay, so that's what you mean by that. Okay.
So they're there, but they don't know what's going on. They don't care. They're just there to collect the paycheck. They take a nap. They do the least amount of work. They don't have to do anything. Because guess what happens when you're invisible? Nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're in your own little world and you don't care. There are people who are dangerous, who have a very personal agenda. Like Jasmine. And then there are people who are very team oriented and understand that anything in this world that is accomplished is actually accomplished through a team. And I think it is a very, very dark time, but I also believe that through darkness comes the best, most powerful innovation. Misery is a powerful motivator, right? Like people won't do anything. They won't do anything. Oh, I know. And trust me, I'm sitting on your end. Trust me.
Here's the thing. I got to interrupt. Here's the thing. I know what you're saying and I agree with you. But my concern and I think it's a valid concern, and I think you'll echo this, is that I'm worried that by the time the light makes it through, it's going to be too late.
It's either too late or it's an inevitable change. So, Thanos. Let's just use frickin' Thanos.
God, your
Okay?
references are on point today.
And so it's like, so do you stop fighting? Do you stop? I'll use me as an example. This woman came up to me and she said, Michelle, you changed how I ran in the election. You inspired me. You did all of these things. She says, I actually believe you changed the entire Conservative Party, but you lost your seat. You were the collateral damage for something bigger. And I think, we, and maybe that's just my own ego, like, oh, it's okay, Michelle, you did something. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just out to lunch.
I don't
But
think so.
I think it is something, I think that nothing is ever about us. Like, we are a hive. Like, I have this visual in my head of a beehive. And you only function as well as the hive, and you are all interconnected. And so when the world is, have you watched the new Mission Impossible?
No.
Okay. So it's wacky, but it's not.
Well, I understand the hive mind mentality.
But
So I know what you mean by this.
AI, and it's called the Entity, and it's basically created this mind virus that within the world, everybody starts to fight and go against each other. It's very relevant to what you're seeing on the ground. And sometimes you have to think, is this and I always think we know this much. Like, we literally know this much. Like, if you've ever spoken to somebody who's ever been on the other side, like somebody who's had psychosis, schizophrenia, and you're like, wow, it's like you have a portal, man.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the people, and I know this all sounds crazy, but I think it's bigger than that, because I think it just swallows you up. Like, I think you can easily be swallowed up, and I think you can do that. It doesn't work for me, because then I lay in bed and I think, what's the point? And when I get to what's the point, then life sucks. And I can't deal with that. So I guess it's not an answer to your question. It's just how I am coping through this, because I think it's like, we're in the middle of the sludge. We're pulling, we're fighting, and what will happen, but not doing anything doesn't seem like a good reason either.
And I don't think there's
my personality.
And I also don't think there's a wrong way to do. I mean, I don't think the only wrong way to do it is to do nothing. So I think how people cope is how people cope. There's no wrong or right way. It's individualized as
Some
to
people
what
doing
works for
nothing
you.
Saves them.
No, that's what I mean. Their self-preservation kicks in, right? That fight, flight, freeze, and they really much do freeze. And I think you're seeing that in the country currently. I think that you are seeing a fight, flight, or freeze response. I think the newest stat that came out that said the majority of Canadians are was it 53 or 63% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. The majority of people.
I think it's higher than that. I thought it was 80.
It's probably quite high now. I mean, that was the last stat I saw, but again, I do my best to live here, not participate here, because I am not of the same belief set as you. I wish I was.
What do you think the solution is, though?
I don't think there is a solution. I think, unfortunately, we're in this place with this country currently that unless a few things happen, because there are things there are catalyst points, right? There are these break points that happen. It's like this with anything, right? There's if this is the end goal, there are, think of a tree. There are branches you can go off that will take us into a different direction, a different reality, a different, whatever you want to call it. And if we don't change course by some of those, I think there's an inevitable demise toward the country. Now, when you have individuals like members of the UK Parliament coming out, and I posted the other day saying one of the worst things Canada could do was put in Mark Carney as the leader of it. He printed too much money. He put us into a recession. He caused an immigration crisis. He caused all of these things to X, Y, and Z domino fall. And then you tell me that all of a sudden, the same person that's been running the policy that had the country crash for the past 9 years is now the head of the country, which, by the way, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. I know too much. I don't buy it. I don't think so. I don't think at all did he get voted in. I think that's a joke. And I think anybody who believes it is delusional and clearly doesn't read. And again, there's that delusional state that we have to be in to survive living in Canada, because The only way you can wrap your true brain around paying somebody over 50% of your taxes and then also having to pay,
Right.
$4,000 a year for a 1,400 square foot townhouse tax wise, as well as like $1 million to buy one of these.
And what do you
And
get in return?
oh, you get absolutely nothing other than high taxes
Right.
and communism. So
Right.
when you start to put things in place, so here's the thing. Could it change course? Yes. Do I see it at any point in time? No. Why? Because the people that control the country, because this is the problem with not living in a real democracy, right? When you can take an institution, take its police force, and turn it on its own citizen, number one,
Yeah.
trucker protests, and you can do that successfully and convince people with the most seats in the country. The only provinces that matter in an election are Ontario and Quebec. I mean, the other provinces can vote. We can vote and we can get a somewhat representation. But the last election I told you was called, most of these places were called before votes were even counted. So
Mm-hmm.
to sit there
Yeah.
and say that our votes matter is difficult. I believe everyone should vote. Does that mean it will be counted? I don't know. Where I went, there was pencils. So you tell me. And then they can go, ballot boxes can go home at night. So again, so I do wonder about that. I do worry that I don't think, based on the immigration and the amount of people we're bringing in legally and illegally, can we sustain that? Absolutely not. Do I think the
Yeah.
housing crisis is about to crash? 1000%. Do I see digital currency coming in place and people turning off bank accounts just like they did before? 1000%. Do I see them also doing social credit scores? Absolutely. There's a form of it already in place. Do I see school systems breaking all around us, allowing indoctrination by people like Selma New? Absolutely. And when you speak up, you're racist. So do I see real problems? Yes. The way out of it has to be such an about face. It's disgusting. I don't know in my lifetime that I will see Canada do an about face. I don't. I wish, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. So how I live in the delusion is to acknowledge that I pay taxes here. I don't want to be here, but I have to be here. And I like the people around me and do what I can in my community. But I don't think we have anybody currently, except for maybe a handful of conservatives that are in the government. And let me just be very clear. There are conservative MPs that have been in our government for an extended period of time doing absolutely nothing. So this isn't a liberal or a conservative issue. This is a you're shitty at your job.
System.
It's a system breakdown. So
Yeah.
what I tell people in Canada is take your money out, put it in other countries, buy Bitcoin, don't pay off your mortgage because now you will be penalized for it. So don't do it. Stock food, learn how to hunt, get a fucking gun, and do everything you can to have to literally avoid being involved in the country at all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how.
Listen,
I know it's dark. It's the worst. You're like, Kelsey, you're killing me here. But I'm just
no, you're not.
saying.
No, I heard it. I heard it over and over and over again at the door. And I think it's like, you're not, I don't think.
Well, look, I mean, we've got the drug problem isn't the problem. It's the people funneling it in. The drug problem's not the problem. It's the people on the borders bought and paid for to allow it through the scanners.
Well, it's ideology. So like ideology drives policy. So it's like, if you're sitting here and I had to listen to this in the House of Commons, it's like, you just can't force people to get treatment. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. They're not in a state to even make a decision to get treatment. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? And so ideology drives policy. And so that comes back to what you asked me before about how do I believe? Because I believe that, when I first started, I'm like, oh, the party system is it's hard. Okay. It's really, really hard when you're on a team and you want to, like, when you're me and you have like this loud mouth.
Yeah. I don't know how you did it. I watched you several times bite your tongue.
And I was like, right. And you're like, and so it's hard, but I think discipline is also very important. And I actually think I learned a lot of discipline that I probably needed, to be honest with you. Discipline is, because just saying everything all the time also loses its value, right? So there is that sweet spot of discipline. But like ideology, like I was in Turkey and I'm sitting across from this. I wish I had recorded this video. Like, I wish I had recorded it, because he goes, what do you mean the government pays for drugs?
Oh yeah, the safe injection sites.
And I was like, well, it's called safe supply. He's like, what do you mean it is safe? And I'm like, well, it's not, but that's just what
Mm,
they call it.
right.
And I wish somebody had recorded the genuine
Hmm.
shock in this man's, like, he was like, why
Yeah.
would you give the thing to the people that's hurting the people?
Right.
And I was like, that's a great question. That's a great question. But
Feels like common sense.
when you're in that room, Kelsey, or you're sitting in that committee, like, there were days where I was like, I am in the Twilight Zone. I am
Yeah.
in it. Like, it was, I was like, what do you mean
Yeah.
you don't want to change the policy and legislation so that less women are being murdered? Like, what do you mean? Like,
Right.
and then they just say that's not true. That's not true. That's the
Yeah. They
like
just
go
gaslight
to,
you.
yeah, that's the go to response. And I learned this the hard way over and over and over again. Because I was like, they'd be like, you're a liar. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I didn't like, this is just what's happening. Like, what do you want
Right.
from me? Um, but I think the thing I would end on with all of that, what you said, and what I always come back to, and I remember Jordan Peterson said this, and it was like, you know how you have that like moment,
Hmm.
and he
Yes,
said,
I've had one with him.
yeah,
Yes.
he said, humans organize their thoughts through conversation.
Yes.
So when they shut us down and COVID shut us all in, and we all went even crazier than we already were, and then you throw in social media where you actually can't have a conversation. It's just
Hmm.
that Kermit the Frog meme of like, I'm
Hmm.
not even listening to you, I'm just reacting. So nobody's actually organizing their thoughts. And without organization, you have chaos. And when you have
Hmm.
chaos, you have chaos. And Mr. Rogers has this saying that I like live and breathe by, because people say, why do you want to talk about this stuff? Like, it's not fun. And I'm like, anything mentionable
Yeah.
is manageable.
Yeah.
And if you do not talk about things, I remember being somewhere and somebody was like, and they were having a really hard time. And I turned to them and I said, are you suicidal? Are you thinking of killing yourself? And the
Hmm.
person beside me's mouth went like, Michelle, you can't say that to somebody. And I said,
Yes, you
oh,
can.
you know what happens when you don't say that to somebody?
Hmm.
Because you know what you can't stop, what you don't know.
Yeah. Things grow in the dark.
And so I guess, Kelsey, the answer is actually in what we're doing right now.
Hmm.
And even though you can't share it in Canada, I can take a clip, put it on my Instagram.
Yeah. I know.
And I can do it here. And I keep coming back to, there are more of us than there are of them.
Hmm.
And the, I worked in media and I watched, yes, C11 and C18 is a massive problem and it's insane. And anybody who sees it understands it. But the
Hmm.
mindset of the people that is attracted to the mainstream media are already liberal minded. And
Oh,
this
they're
is true.
already gone.
Yeah, they're already there. So it's not,
Yeah.
it's like a sandwich of all this.
Hmm.
I went to try to apply at college and a university because that's what I would love to do. I'd love to teach marketing communications now that, I'm not
They would
an
not
MD.
let you teach that.
The girl responsible. So I messaged this lady and I said, hi, I'm looking to apply. I would love to teach marketing and communications. I love teaching. I love kids. It's like, that to me is your answer, because you talk to young people and let them think and become who they are.
That's right.
And she goes, oh yeah, no problem. Okay, the woman you need to contact is blah, blah, blah. And I started laughing
Yeah.
because the woman who's in charge of hiring teachers went ape shit on me at the door when I was door knocking, saying I was
Yeah.
the devil and the conservatives are the
Yeah.
reason there is horror in the world. And I was like, I will never get hired.
Mm-mm.
I will
But it,
never get hired because they don't, your politics, now you're conservative, you're the devil.
right.
And so we don't want you.
Oh, I mean, I have a clip that went viral talking about how I never was a conservative. I was like what it means to be a traditional liberal, right? Like I was like, we don't
Hi,
need to, I know. This is
let's
why we're
just get
crazy
along.
now.
You do you. You do
That,
you.
that's right.
Like the
Stop teaching my
granola.
kids. Yeah.
We were the granola people, right?
Yes.
We were
Yes.
like just like free spirit, like you do
Mm-hmm.
you. And now the world is upside down.
Yeah.
It's upside down. So what was
Yeah.
the left is the right, and what was the right? Like it's messed. It's
And
meant.
that's what I try to explain to people when I do, like, I did Tim Pool on Friday, and we were talking about, we were doing the green room show, and we had
Sorry,
this
just having a
conversation
podcast. Yeah,
about,
sorry, my son's behind me.
it's okay. It's all right. I'm fine with that. As long as his face not on camera. I just don't like
Yeah,
children on the
he has
screen.
his pants on, so that was a
Oh,
win-win for
oh,
everybody.
that's the least of my concerns. It's more
Yeah.
his face. I worry for his own safety. The thing, we was talking to Tim Pool about it, and I said, like, what's the conversation topics like today? He's like, we're gonna go through the list. We're going through the list, right? And it's like, should we feel bad that Biden has cancer? Should we feel this? Should we do it? And I said, do you want to talk about anything Canada related? And he looked at me, goes, try to pull up Canada right now to watch this show. So I pulled it up. We couldn't watch the show with my VPN on in Canada. And he just looked at me and he said, fuck Canada and fuck it all, because they're an absolute disaster. And I said, no, you're not wrong. And I'm right there with you. Hence is why I'm down on an American show, because I'm safe
Right.
here. I have freedom of speech here. And when I do these shows, have these conversations, these topics, I don't do the shows you do in Canada. I don't do them because I know what I'll say will put me in prison. If I do those shows from America, I'm protected under the First Amendment because I'm doing it
Am I
on
going
their
to prison
soil.
after this show? Is that what's happening to
Probably.
me?
I mean, I don't know.
Right.
CSIS has
You
already
thought,
arrested somebody in Winnipeg, so why not you now in Peterborough?
I've been in the Canadian prison system. It's actually pretty
Perfect.
nice. You want me to tell you some crazy stories about Canadian prison? We can go into that as well, which is another
I
like.
mean, well, and that's it. So when I went to college after the military, they thought it'd be a good idea to retrain me. So we went to one of the remand centers, and then we went to a couple of the prisons. There was HBO on the TVs. They had their own washing machines and dryers. They could run around. And these were, by the way, convicted, lifetime, never ever leaving. Fun fact for everybody in curious and involvement: Abbotsford Prison has a larger green space mass for their prisoners than my son does in any of the Surrey schools. We are absolutely backwards in the importance of what it means to raise children properly, but we give prisoners more rights. We allow them to spend our taxpayer money becoming transitioned into whatever gender ideology they decide. If they choose maid and they're a rapist, we've now done that to people in Abbotsford as well. This is not I'm not facetious in what I'm saying. It sounds delusional, but here we are. We're at a place in the country where, again, Sharia law is coming into place. We are allowing gender indoctrination to happen. And then if we say anything, we're wrong. We are being arrested for tweets now officially as of a couple weeks ago when the Winnipeg individual went in. And then we are being forced to shove down our throats and accept things like lies, like compelled speech and mass graves. And then if we say anything against that, how dare we say the actual truth? The country is not the country I grew up in, nor the country you grew up in. I think that's fair to say. Does that mean it can come back? I mean, based on population, no. Does it just mean it'll be a new version of what it means to be Canadian? I argue that the only way to be Canadian now is to wear a hijab. So, I mean, if you want to fuck with that, that's on you. But I don't want any part of this place.
I'll tell you one more story that'll just blow your mind and your viewers' minds. So
perfect.
I go to this prison. There was a bunch
one?
of guards. It was in Kitchener, Grandview.
Okay.
Grandview?
Okay.
No.
And the Kitchener one isn't Grandview. It's no. I know. Anyway, I know what one you're talking about, but continue.
What the hell is it called?
It.
You'll find it.
Yeah.
Where's that Joe Rogan's Jamie? Jamie, pull that up.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Jamie and Rogan. Welcome to the team.
Welcome to the team. Welcome to our. So I go and the federal correctional guards were in Ottawa. They were doing like a lobbying day, and
Grand
they did
Valley Institute for Women.
Valley. Thank you. Grand Valley Institute for Women. And so they were lobbying on Parliament Hill, and they did this VR experience where you got to actually it was actually super smart. So you got to see what a correctional officer dealt with in a day in the life, and it was super smart for people who haven't been through it and to understand the job. Very, very listen, policing is a terrible job. First responders is a terrible job. Correctional officers is another level of difficult because you're dealing with the worst of the worst and nobody sees you. So you're not a hero at all, right? You don't even get that sort of fanfare. So anyway, so this guy comes to me and he says, Michelle, I've watched you and I think you got a powerful voice. I would like to tell you something. And I said, okay. He says, are you familiar with the mother-child program? And I said, no. And he said, okay, in prison in Canada, if you have a child in prison, you get to keep that child up to the age of 6 years old. And I was like, what? And then he explained it to me and I got it. So before you flip out of this part, this isn't actually the bad part. So well, just wait. So there's actually a ton of research that the child ends up doing better. The mother ends up actually rehabilitating better if she's kept with her child. Okay. I can get that. Okay. That's fine. I understand that you have all these programs and money and all of this stuff and da, 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 da. Okay. He said, but he said, that's not the problem. He said that program's been in place for 20 years and we've had great success stories of mothers actually being real, like, you know, either they were a trafficking or they were part of a trafficking ring. And there's all kinds of complications when you're dealing with women and drug deals and all this kind of stuff. Okay, fine. He says, the problem is, he says, those children, so in Grand Valley, it's like so people have this vision in their head of the Hollywood movies of what prison is. It's nothing like that. So it's like a university campus. It's like these houses, and there's like this big green space with picnic tables, and they all just walk around and la-di-da. And it's nothing kind of what you think. And these are like medium to maximum security inmates. So I went into the maximum security area, and then I went into this open space, and there's a house that's specific for the mother and child. So some mothers have their children full time, some of them get them on the weekends. They come in and they have a beautiful little house. They have like a crib, they have nice stuff in this home for the mother and child. And then right beside this house is another house where inmates are living as well, one of whom was a convicted child killer and rapist.
Okay, what year is this?
So this is now, like, this is happening right now. So they brought me in to show me this. They said, Michelle, this is happening across the country. And I said, what are you talking about? So I hate saying the murderer's name. I think it always gives them more attention, but I will talk about the victim because I've dealt with the father, and it's just a horrific story. So Tori Stafford was a beautiful little girl. She was 8 years old.
I hate this.
Yeah. She was pulled from the school. So if this is triggering to you, I
no,
know
nothing triggers me anymore.
Okay. It's awful. So this guy and this girl take her from the school. They violently rape, beat her, kill her. Okay. She's this sweet little 8-year-old girl. They go to prison. And now this woman who's in the woman's prison lives beside the mother-child house.
And everyone's cool with that?
So I bring it up. So I go through the prison. They show me, I come face to face with the person. I also met the Canada's most notorious serial killer. I went into her room and saw her room. She showed me her plants.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure Ellen Weeb still exists outside. She's still mating people. So maybe you're thinking of the wrong one.
She was a nurse that did the same thing. That's the same kind of thing.
Perfect. Because healthcare serial killers don't exist, right?
Yeah. So anyway, this is fine. They showed me their food in their fridge and their beautiful little dorm rooms and all of these things. And the corrections officers have nowhere to eat their lunch, and they have nothing. And
totally.
Anyway, and all the drones are bringing the drugs in constantly, and everybody knows it, and it's fine. And then you get a kit when you come into prison of how to do your drugs. And I'm like, but I thought drugs were contraband. Yeah, they are.
But they give you a kit to do it?
But they, what?
Okay.
What? Okay. I guess we're all good here. Why are there pregnancy tests here? Like, okay, I get the conjugal visits. Oh, well, we have 8 transgender inmates.
Oh, you mean you have men? You have full males.
Full male, full intact, full everything, full penis, full everything, identifies as a male. They're getting paid to have sex with the inmates. Oh yeah. Oh,
hold on. This is in Kitchener?
Crazy. Yes, it's crazy.
This is happening at Grand Valley. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. I feel like we should do some research on this one.
So nobody wants to talk about this. So I go into the prison. We do a tour. The corrections guards were like amazing, and they are amazing with these inmates. And some of them have great, like, I met some incredible women who, you know what, like, prison is supposed to be a rehabilitation, right? Something happened to you. And I met some great ones who had amazing stories, right? They were drug dealers. They were trafficked. They were, they got some education while they were in prison. They were ready to go out. They were ready to be independent. It was like
trafficking victims should never be put in prison anyway.
Right.
Start with that.
Right. So I met some good, cool stories. So then I meet this child killer who's in the same space, literally going in and out of the child house. And so I go back to the House of Commons. I stand up in the House of Commons. You can pull this up. And I ask this question about Tori Stafford to the minister. He gets up and calls me a liar. Says I'm lying and I'm making it up. Tori's dad texts me and is like, Michelle, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for telling people what's really happening.
Right.
And where's the accountability? Where is it? And
Well,
so,
you can't
and the
accept
only thing, like,
accountability from people like this who have no morality.
well, they don't know what's happening, Kelsey.
Uh,
That's what I'm saying. So he wouldn't have known in that moment. So then he probably went back. Like, they don't even know what's going on. This is what I say. I go out and I work in the tent cities, okay? I go out and I
yeah.
sit on the ground and I talk. I've never met a person in active addiction who wants to be an addict. Never,
No.
ever, ever, ever. And I'll say to them, I'll go out and I'll work with them, and I'm like, they're like, nobody has who makes these policies, like any of the politicians, has ever come out and talked to us ever
Yeah.
before. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? So Dominic LeBlanc, who called me a liar in the House of Commons about Terrelyn McClintock living in this space with these children,
Mm-hmm.
called me a liar because he's never been. He
He's
hasn't seen it.
uneducated.
And so somebody, all it takes, like, so if you have gatekeepers and they go, no, that's not how it works. The mother child program is very controlled. So then I wrote to the head person at Grand Valley. Oh no, everything is done. Everything is great. It's the same thing that happened with the commissioner when I went after Marco Mendicino about the transfer of Paul Bernardo.
Right. That's a whole, okay. Can we touch on that too? Because I think that's very important for people who don't know who Paul Bernardo is, or the fact that the other half of that murderous duo lives in Quebec and got facial reconstruction, who volunteers with children, who was convicted of raping and murdering a child and a family member at that. And most people don't realize that she works in the school system. That's insane.
Most people don't know that they live beside a pedophile either, Kelsey.
Wow. You know.
But anyway, again, like you hate to be doom and gloom, but I think what happens is it's like people don't know what they don't know, and they don't want to believe it. And like when that happened in that house, like if you pull that exchange up, I was like,
dumbfounded.
Do you not know what's happening, or are you just hoping nobody, like, what's going on? And you can hear me screaming because I'm like screaming at him. I'm like, you need to go to bed.
Well, because the thing I want to understand is that, okay, if we know that these people, if this is happening in that specific prison, which I'm going to do a little bit of a dive on and see what I pull up on them, I want to know, has something ever happened to one of those children? I want to know what else is being covered up.
How would you know?
We'll find out.
This is the other problem. So this is why the guards are so concerned. How would you know if something happened to the child? Other than the child being murdered. But how would you know that they aren't being sexually assaulted? How would you know?
Well, this is why so I understand, like, historically, like you said, statistically, the past 20 years of them doing that program, children have developed better, women have been rehabilitated. Yeah. But I guess my pushback on that is, at what cost? At what cost? Because to me, if you are a woman who is going to spend life in prison and you get pregnant with one of these men who pretend to be women, and you now have a child that you'll never get out. So you get that child till they're 6, but at what cost? To whose cost is that? Because to me, on the outside, that looks like we are allowing you to have access to children and your child, and the whole point is for you to actually suffer. The whole point is for you to not have access to things that the people who do the right things, pay the right taxes, don't touch people, murder people, hurt people, have. So to me, it sounds like it's not that bad. Fuck it. You'll get your kid till you're 6. You don't actually have repercussions for things. And at what cost and what risk is that child's mindset, mentality, and normalizing the idea of being in a prison system? To whom are we now actually helping and hurting? Because it seems like we're being selfish.
I think you could have this is a philosophical debate for sure, because I think no matter what, the child loses.
But
no matter what.
Of course they do. But now at what risk are you exposing them? Because how often, for example, our system's broken and so is the foster care system. So, I mean, and not just Canada. I mean,
precisely.
Look at what Biden just did with all of the children.
There's a bigger prison than an actual prison.
Well, exactly. So my thought, okay, there's 2 schools of thought on it, right? They can have access to the parent that kind of thing. But if you are telling me that this specific prison in Kingston, was it, you said Kitchener, Ontario, Grand Valley Institute for Women, is allowing a child killer to live beside you, you can't argue to me that that's somehow better or safer, because you're going to have run-ins with that human or people like that.
That is exactly the argument we were making. It wasn't the
Right.
mother-child program, checks and balances in rehabilitation, in ensuring the ultimate safety of the child, ensuring all of those things of justice. Justice is such a messed up thing, because
Right.
there's a reason for everyone's behavior. Why did they commit that crime? And so then you
Right.
always go down that, like, it's always this tension, right? Of like,
Right.
why did you do this? What happened to you? Okay, but you still have to be accountable. You still can't just walk free, all those kinds of pieces. The issue is that there isn't the checks and balances in place. And when pushed on it, and the commissioner, like, I can show
Right.
you the emails, like, they just brushed me off. Like, it was like, no, that would never happen. I'm like, it is happening. So
Right.
that's where the accountability piece has completely lost every, and it all starts at the top, Kelsey, because when there's not accountability so that's what I'm saying to you when I say, so that minister said I was lying.
Right.
But what's the follow-up to that? Nothing.
There,
There is
exactly.
nothing, because there's no accountability. And when there's no accountability, that bleeds down to how ministers operate. That bleeds down to society, because everybody looks, it's like a kid watching their parents who go and they steal something from the store. And the parents are like, well, it's okay, we need it, and they won't miss it. And so the kid's like, okay, I guess I'm stealing now. I guess that's
Right.
okay, because that's what's been modeled to me. So now society models the same lack of accountability, because you can go out and literally murder somebody, go show up at your court appearance, go out on bail, and do it all over again.
Right. And that's what's happening. Look at the woman, the grandmother or the elderly
Yes.
woman that was just murdered. And, a client of mine that I had, she's a writer as well. And she, she tweeted at them and they're like, oh, you wanted to go, like, why don't you ask her? Oh, wait, you can't. Like, you can't, because she's already been killed. So this is I think the problem I see, and the reason I enjoy talking to people like yourself, is that you don't really have a problem saying it, but at the same time, we have to say it. It can be gross and it can be uncomfortable, but if you don't say these things, no one will know. And so when you're telling me that these ministers and these individuals, and we'll talk offline about this, I want to see those emails. I want to see who saw them.
Yeah.
I want to see who saw them and brushed them off, because now I will hold you accountable. And the difference between you holding them accountable and me holding them accountable is very different. And I want to
Well, I'll
know,
tell you,
because
the commissioner, Ann Kelly, is somebody you want to look up greatly.
Ann
She's
Kelly,
yeah,
fun.
and it's the same when there's an exchange I did in human resources, and I asked how much has homelessness increased, and they're like, well, and they dance around the question. And this is rule number one: when somebody can't give you a clear answer,
They're
they're
lying.
the problem, not you. It's like I
Yeah.
always say, when you used to go to like your financial planner and they'd speak in jargon. No,
Yeah.
no. That's their problem, not yours.
Right.
And that's the first indication. And it's like, so I did this back and forth, and I'm like, yeah, well, we've spent $4.5 billion. This is an auditor
Right.
general report. We can't tell you if homelessness has gotten better or worse. And I said, well, I can. Have you went outside?
You, you know what they sound like? They sound like Gavin Newsom. Should
Yeah.
probably start a podcast. Take a
Yeah,
note in
like,
his
I
page.
don't know about, like, this was like, I want somebody to put together a clip of me in the house, because I just kept saying, go outside, go outside. Like, what are you doing? Are you in a room? Like, what is happening? Why don't you know what's actually happening like, just walk downtown any city in this country, right? Like, I remember when Pierre was running for leader, and he knew, like, because I'm like a broken record about mental health and addiction. It's all I talk about.
Right.
And 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 I said, Pierre, you have to go to East Hastings. You
Oh,
can't, I can't tell you what it
Yeah.
is. You can watch it on TV. You can't watch it. You have to go walk it, and you have to smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget it. Pierre was like, Michelle, he's
Yeah.
like, and I said, it's hell on earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's hell on
Yeah.
earth.
Can you imagine owning a property there before that happened and now?
And can you imagine being a parent and knowing your kid is in there?
Yeah, a very good friend of mine who owns a boutique that carries brass and unity just lost her son, who same sort of problem, right? This is not, you know, she put him in rehab. She did all the right things. He came out, he was doing great, yada, yada, got back into it. And then he passed away. It's like, these are preventable deaths. These are on, like, these deaths aren't on the families. These deaths are on our government. Every single
Correct.
one of them.
System.
Every person
Yeah.
who signed up for the safe injection sites, who voted for them, everybody who put their ideology into them and said, yeah, I'm going to raise my hand to that. It's no different. Like, this whole ignorance is bliss. Like, I give people some grace on that they don't know stuff. But once you're in a position like this and you still don't know stuff and you get to vote on the laws and the rules that dictate the entire population of the country, ignorance is no longer allowed.
That's right. But it's also, what happens is apathy. That's what happens, because you go, what's the fucking point?
Right. And you just vote along party lines.
That's when I would push back to you, because you have it, and I know why you have it. Where it's like, why would I vote? And there's nothing that drove me crazy. Nothing drove me crazier than this, because I'm like, I'm telling you. Well, look at what happened last night. I don't know when this is going to air, but last night the Conservatives won a vote in the House of Commons because 4 Liberals didn't vote.
Right.
You know, the world and problems are literally one step at a time. And one action at a time is the same thing. And so that's what I've seen in my space in politics. And I'm equally guilty of it, I'll be honest with you. Like, somebody said to me, they said, Michelle, why don't you run for mayor of Peterborough? And I've got, what for?
Right.
What for? Because I can't change that. And I think that's when we really start to break down, because it's like,
this episode is brought to you by Ketone IQ. And if you guys have not seen me drinking it, it has been behind me. It has been everywhere. But ketones, I want to tell you a little bit more, because you ask all the time, are a powerful macronutrient, and they cross the blood-brain barrier. They supercharge your brain. And not only do they do that, I have reported and seen my own sharper focus and stronger endurance in next level performance. I use them before podcasts, before keynote speeches, and before I work daily with clients, and when I get on my road bike. But this is not just that feeling good type ad. This is for real. This is backed by science. And in a placebo-controlled study, Ketone IQ users saw a 19% increase in sprint power, 13% in more peak power, and 10% less fatigue. And the ketone levels spiked 5 times in just 20 minutes. So when it comes to recovery, Ketone IQ improves blood flow, muscle oxygenation, and even boosts EPO, which is critical for your stamina and the bounce back factor. So if you guys are chasing that edge, physical or mental, Ketone IQ is the shortcut to getting into those zones. Do yourself a favor, go over to ketone.com and use the code Kelsey. You're going to save 30% off your next subscription. And I do promise you, ketone is no joke. Ketone fuels the flow. And I'm telling you, it is the best thing I have ever gotten into. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Good Livin'. I am so excited to tell you about something that's become such a meaningful part of my wellness routine, Good Livin'. Now, this isn't any brand. This is actually a brand I know all of the owners behind. And let me tell you, their integrity, their dedication, and their quality is the real deal. Their microdosing and functional blends are crafted with intention, and you can feel it. Everything is tested and made to support you in tapping into your own rhythm. We're talking about blends for anxiety, depression and stress, ADHD, brain health, inflammation, sleep, and energy. Seriously, they have thought of everything possible. I know firsthand how much love they pour into every single product. So if you're ready to check them out and explore more, go to itsgoodlivin.com, and trust me, it's a journey worth taking. That's itsgoodlivin.com, itsgoodlivin.com, and make sure to use the code Kelsey and get 20% off your first order today.
Because apathy is, and quite frankly, a lot of them, like if you look at how the school system is developed, they're hoping you don't fight back. They're hoping.
They're betting on it.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, and like, here's the thing. I don't have full apathy for the country. I just wouldn't run for a position that I felt like I couldn't do anything. It's prime minister. It's nothing. And I'm not wasting my time.
You don't have handcuffs on you right now, Kelsey.
Well, that's why I didn't end up going last year when they asked me to run. Like, first it was the Liberals who called. actually, ironically.
Same with me. We have the same story.
It was Trudeau's right hand who called the nonprofit I work for to see if I would set up a meeting to sit down and have a conversation. And I said, no, never.
Right.
And then after, it was the other one. And part of the problem is people don't understand how dirty politics really can be. And if they just want someone in, they will just put them in. And a beautiful example is Mark Carney, who has never held a public seat at all.
You should
in his
interview
life.
Jody Wilson-Raybould on your show.
Everyone's welcome. People just don't do it.
Like, have you read her book?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you should.
Yeah?
Oh, you should.
Is that somebody I need to be in contact with?
She's a pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Her story is pretty incredible, right? And it's called Indian in the Cabinet, and Trudeau, wined and dined her and put her in there, and it's the same thing he's done with all of the women, right? Because he's a feminist, because they're feminists.
No, he's a closeted homosexual whose wife left him and wears irresponsible shoes to things like the king showing up. And then he's also, I'm pretty sure, like Macron's like buddy, because he's married to one too. So the point is no, he's not. He's a overglorified drama teacher who couldn't run himself out of a wet paper bag. And I would pay money to just try to go on a jog with him to see how ill-equipped he is, just physically and mentally. But that's my personal perspective.
Well, I actually would give him far more credit than that. And one thing you could never do with that guy is underestimate him. Like, there's a whole bunch of things about Justin Trudeau that I could go into deep detail. And I remember the first time I sat across from him and I was like, what is going on? But to underestimate him.
Oh, no, I never underestimate stupidity, darling. I just know who his handlers are.
He's not stupid.
No, he's like weirdly autistic smart, but plays like he's dumb. And then he's just fed from other people.
Just a narcissist.
Yeah, he's a standard narcissist. Yeah, he's a standard. And it's funny because any psychiatrist, which I know too many of them, worth their salt, would say the same thing. They
did. My colleague said it in the House of Commons. He's like, I'm a doctor, and I know that.
And that is diagnosable under the DSM-5. I know we don't acknowledge the DSM-5 in mental illness, but that is for sure what we're looking at here. Well, I mean, you can't sit there and clap and bring in a known SS member and how smart can we really be? I just think at the end of the day, as much as we like to think that our prime minister is running the country, he's not. And it's not from within Canada either. And I just would like Canada to acknowledge that, so that if we were to actually take a genuine look at where the money and the dollars are coming, because it's not hard. Most stuff is available online. You can find out who's paid what, when they're paid, by who. They don't hide it very well, but most people just are unwilling to look. And if you have your own FBI, i.e. CSIS, coming out and saying these things, and people are still unwilling to believe it, that's where my concern becomes. Because then at what point can you get those to wake up? How do you, because if you unseated somebody after 41 years, what did you do so differently to flip such a prominent individual to having you as the Conservative MP? Like, what did you say so different so that you can help me, so that when I'm talking to these people, I can actually help them see?
So I would say I didn't. I would say Canada is famous for voting people out. We don't vote people in. So that happened with me as well. I didn't, the girl who beat me didn't get voted in. They voted Michelle out. They strategically voted to ensure that I didn't get my seat. And the same thing happened. I mean, I had a high profile name in the community. I was fairly trusted. But the minute I came out as Conservative, I was the devil. But they voted her out. So the minister I took out was Miriam Monsef. And you may remember this. She called the Taliban her brothers.
Yeah, super loved that over here.
So
loved that.
I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for her. On top of, she wasn't a very connected member of Parliament. Like, she never showed up. Like, she didn't go to events. She didn't kind of do that. So I think that's what it was. But historically, we just don't vote people in. We vote people out.
Interesting. So you didn't have any different talking points you ran on, things that you felt were more important that other people could see?
I talk about addiction and mental health all the time.
Do you think that more people with the addiction and mental health conversation want to hear it, but are so exhausted from it?
I think they're exhausted. I think that's why one of the reasons why I lost. I think they couldn't handle it, and I don't think they wanted to handle it, and I don't think they want to believe it. And like, so the way the riding I'm in, it's like, so the center, the city
Mhm.
center is very liberal and
Right.
NDP. So in like 2021, they got 19% of the vote. And in 2025, they got 3%. So they strategically voted. I lost by 10,000 votes. The NDP lost 12,000 votes.
Right.
So there you go, right there. Like, that's why I
Yeah.
lost. And I was the only candidate in Canada with a third party dedicated exclusively to me, to get me voted out. It was a registered third party called No More Ferreri. So they
Who
had
funds that?
protests. They do.
Yeah, but
They do.
who's they?
It's a guy and a girl.
Who's the
They
guy
were
and
the
the
head.
girl, though?
I'm not saying their name. I'm not giving them
Why
any.
don't you afterwards? Why don't you tell me who they are?
I'll tell
Because
you
I'd
who
like
they are
to.
up there. But
Yeah,
all
because
they
I'd like
want,
to
they
know.
feed off of me. Like, their
Yeah.
identity is tied to me. So I'm like, I'm not acknowledging you exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm curious. I'll do a little dive on them. I'd like to know who they are,
Yeah,
where their money's coming from.
I think it's their own. So it's a minimum of $500. That's all you have to be registered as a
Right.
third party. So they printed off signs and they held protests. And, when they were asked by CBC what was wrong with MP Ferreri, why they hated me so much, they said, well, I just don't like her mannerisms. She's just
Sorry,
evil.
I don't like the CBC, so it doesn't matter. It's interesting for you when I look at what you do. What is the next step for you? Because you did have a very like, I remember there was very few times. I mean, I've testified in the Senate now several times. I still don't know why they have me. I've done it a handful of times. I'm gonna keep doing it in terms of psychedelics and, like, so that we stop, I don't know, electrocuting people to death. I I have to, but I want to understand, like, because for someone like you whose life was that, and now you're doing other things, like, what is the next step for you? What is the next plan for you? Because I could have seen you being the prime minister. I don't know why
I,
you're laughing.
I couldn't.
Why?
Um, I just, no. Like I told you, I felt like a fish out of water in there. Like, I was
Yeah,
like,
but
I'm
that's
not.
why they need you to be the prime minister. We don't need
Yeah.
somebody who's comfortable in water. We need somebody who's comfortable out of it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I will always share stories. It's what I love to do. And creating content and being a vehicle for people to deliver messaging. So, like, I
Mhm.
think you will be an important voice of that. Where is psilocybin? Where is this treatment? Where are these psychedelics in our path forward that we haven't even scratched the surface of? Why aren't we investing in this research? Why aren't we talking about what we should be doing? Why aren't we changing the conversation? Everyone's like, everybody goes, why do you, I remember my partner saying this, he goes, why do you care so much about mental health? Like, what is your big thing? And I said, if you are not mentally okay,
Yeah.
everything else around you, your work, your relationships, your life is shit. It's everything.
Mhm.
It's everything. And the problem is we don't even, and then you throw in hormones, and then you throw in age, and you throw in trauma, and then you throw in brain chemistry, and we don't even touch it. I
But
remember
we
when I went
definitely
to the Royal in Ottawa, and I was
Yeah.
like, for the first time, I was like, oh my God, you're doing brain scans. Oh, thank God. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so are you doing? And I met a guy, he was schizophrenic, and he had come in and he was like, that he thought his life was over. He lost his family. He was in full blown psychosis. He was one of the very, very lucky ones to get a bed. He now runs the family unit out of the Royal. His name is Kevin. And it
I
was
love
like,
that.
I love that too. And when you say to me, like, how do you keep, I'm like, I need one story. I need
Yeah.
one story that I know of what is possible. And when I
Mhm.
know what is one person becomes two, and two becomes four, and four becomes eight, and eight becomes 16, and 16 becomes 32. And that is what propels me. And that is what I want to do. And I think 80% of everything, in politics included, it might even be 90%, is communications.
Mhm.
And everybody speaks a different language, everybody perceives the world differently, and everybody absorbs information differently. So to
Right.
have somebody who can understand how you speak or how you absorb information and then being able to relay it to you is very valuable, which is what I hope I'm able to do.
Yeah, you're definitely what I would consider one of the top more articulate individuals that was in the government, and you could say things where it didn't just sound like you were speaking to get a clickbait or something along those lines. Like you actually were saying things that were you could sit and ponder on. But it's just this new cabinet is wild because I
New,
do
the new cabinet.
I mean I'm being generous here. I'm trying to be somewhat kind. I don't know. They're all ill-equipped, useless idiots. But who am I,
Because of
right? I'm
how
just a
it's
podcaster.
because of their ideology. It's
Yes.
their ideology. That's why. Like when you don't want people to think freely, when
Mm-hmm.
you want people to be dependent on you, when you think you know best and you're better than people, that's what
Mm-hmm.
you have. And that's what you have on the that's how they think.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, and so they don't want the free thinker. They don't want that autonomy. They don't want
No.
it.
No, I mean, I saw some stuff this morning where and the fact that you can blatantly lie in the House of Commons and it's taken, excuse me, as like at face value, and you can look at people and you can press and they're allowed to run circles around questions and never actually answer it, like Christina Freeland. Like I think she's one of the most dangerous Canadians that we have, especially with her in any sort of position of power. She's hyper concerning and people should understand why. And I'll do my own dive on her for people to find out. But
Mhm.
there's some serious concerns there, that national security concerns, like real concerns. And I just a sidebar, you'll find this interesting. When I got a divorce last year, I bought a new house across the street, and so I had to get a mortgage and so I'm getting the mortgage. And they said, hey, quick question. We have 2 questions. The Bank of Canada has now just made us start asking. I said, well, what questions are those? I was actually, do you know which questions I'm
I
talking
think I
about?
know what this is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the first question was, do you or anyone you know in your household have any ties to a foreign government? Number 1. And number 2 is, do you or anybody else in your household hold beliefs that could be seen to deem as dangerous ideology?
No, those were not the 2 things I thought they were going to ask you. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I said, you legally can't ask those. She goes, we have to, or we cannot give you a mortgage.
Wow. Okay.
So naturally, I just lied.
Naturally, I just lied.
What am I
And
supposed
that
to say? What am I supposed to say? Yes?
don't Google me.
Don't Google me. Sorry, lady who sounds like she's not from here. It's fine.
Yeah.
I want to have the optimism you have. And I think I do have it, but I think I'm almost a realist to the point where you know what you know and I know what I know. And if we both, which I am looking forward to doing when I come to visit my parents, sit down and just talk for hours, I might crush your soul a little, but we'll bring you back. We'll bring you back. Because
No,
listen,
it's crushed. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, my soul is crushed.
my soul is crushed, she says.
But I just can't seem to stop.
What's
Like,
the
it's
line
like,
for you? Okay, but what's the line for you? I mean it. I'm not being facetious. What is the line where Canada can no longer sustain, or you as yourself as a taxpayer who pays into these systems can sustain the idea of either being here, supporting here, or where you really go, okay, you know what? We truly have fallen into an authoritarian government, and it doesn't actually feel like someplace I would want to raise my children. Don't say never, because that's just not true.
no, I don't believe in that word anyway. There's 2 things I said I'd never do: run for politics and get divorced. I did both, so there you go.
Which you're fantastic.
Yeah. I
said both of those, and now one has
yeah,
happened. So, oh no.
yeah, there you go.
Can you imagine?
I don't know what the line is, because I think it's like, I guess I don't really see the world in boundaries anyway. Like, I come back to that hive thought that I said to you, where it's
But
like,
you believe in borders, right? You're telling me you believe in an open border policy?
no, I don't believe in that at all.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were
No,
not like, hold on.
no. It's I think it's what I'm trying to say to you is how I perceive the world.
Okay.
Like,
Oh, well, because it's this big, right? It's
that's what
actually
I
not
mean.
that.
That's
Ah,
what I
okay. Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, I definitely don't perceive I don't believe in open borders. I don't know. I don't know what the line is.
Okay.
I guess what I keep hanging on to, what I believe my because I think everybody has a gift in this world, right? And I think we're here to use it to share with others. Like it's to better other people.
Right.
And I think most people don't know what their gift is because it's so natural and it's so easy. And we go on these wild goose chases because it's supposed to be hard, but meanwhile, it's the thing that you just do
Right.
without somebody watching, without somebody paying you, without
Yeah.
you just do that thing. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
thing that fills your soul. And so for me, it's being able to connect to people. And it's like, I'll give you this example. So there's this group called Rising Above in Peterborough. It's a faith-based group. It started in Grand Prairie and it's a 6-month program for drugs and addiction. It was specifically targeted at women. You are not like held up and how you have to be detoxed to get into it, but it's faith based. And they just had their graduation, and I was able to go to it, and I was able to meet these girls, and you're like, holy shit, like
It's
this is
doable.
there is light
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, but it's there. And so that's what I keep going. And so this one girl, she was the first one where I was like, the group I work with, street level advocacy, they found her, they were able to get her a spot, and she graduated. It's the one seed.
Yeah.
It's the one seed. And I think the thing that stops everyone from doing anything
Mm.
is two things, which I saw in Parliament Hill every single day, which was imposter syndrome.
Oh, yes.
Why me and why would I be?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm doing. And women are very, very guilty of this. Women do this way more than men. I've sat at a table because most of the things I do, I sit with men because I have more male energy, I think, than feminine energy. And you sit at a table and people don't do what they should do because of fear. And all it takes, you could have 10,000 nice compliments and somebody could tell you, you look, Kelsey, I love your hair. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love it. It looks so good. And somebody comes up to you and goes, oh my God, look at your hair. It like drags you right down.
Mm-hmm.
And all you heard was the one. And
Yeah, it's
that's
the
why
one.
people don't do anything. Because like I saw this post on social media today, and the woman posted a picture of her daughter in a wheelchair and she was dancing. And she was at the recital and she goes, I posted this, and all these people, like a couple of people in the comment section said, oh my God, that mother's forcing her to do that. How does she even know she likes it? So she goes, so I took the video down. And she said, and then I thought about it and I put this video up. It was a year later and her daughter's in the wheelchair and she's like so much better. Like she's kicking and she's doing the choreography and she's clearly loving it. She's a disabled girl. And she's like, why did I let those 3 people who don't know me, who don't know my daughter,
Right.
control what I'm doing? And I think we go in waves. Like I think some days we're stronger than others because all anybody has to do is go to my social media for 3 seconds and you'll see all the hate. Like I
Yeah.
am super targeted. And even after a last election, that's still all they do. And like, and so you could easily get swept up into that,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to pull back and think bigger because those people aren't who you're working for.
Right. Yeah.
And I
I
think
get it.
you get it.
I
You get
get
it.
it. I get it. I mean, how can I not get it? And we've got an uphill battle for the disabled and the mentally ill and the addicts and the veterans. But I've implored them and I've said it before and I'll say it again. The way you stop the addiction crisis is Ibogaine. And until they're unwilling to see that and understand it, it's going to stay this way. Because the 12-step program and the way that AA and NA has been designed actually had the most important component removed from it. That's how you keep people in an illness, is
That's
you don't
so
actually give
funny
them
you
the
say that. I had lunch yesterday with a veteran who went
yeah.
through AA, and he
Yeah.
said, AA's all changed, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, because he credits it with his recovery.
Yeah.
It's so funny you say that because he said they've taken the accountability piece out of it.
It's not even just accountability, right? So that's not the piece they've taken out of it. When AA was created, so I'm a psychedelic integration coach and we get educated. I'm on addiction. Technical title is addiction and psychedelics. So when you look at the addiction protocols, the AA program was designed with LSD. Okay.
Interesting.
So the biggest component and the originator of the program specifically used to state that the spirituality side of things is so integral to the person healing and going all the way through the process, right? And one of the biggest problems I have with AA, and I've been on addiction podcasts and said this to them, and some people will agree and some people won't, is they are designed for you to white knuckle through life and remove accountability by putting it onto someone else, by saying that you never say that I'm the addict. You don't take accountability for it anymore. Once an addict, always an addict, which, by the way, that's not true. That's not how brain chemistry works. It's not always once an addict, always an addict. It's once an addict, was an addict. I am not any longer. But the way they preach it to you is this is you're saying once an addict, always an addict, which means I always have to pay attention. I always have to go to meetings. I always have to do this. That's not how the brain works. But when you slow drip people to tell them that they will always be an addict, meaning they can never be around it, they can never trust themselves, they never allow their brain, the neuroplasticity never kicks in, they never create new neural pathways. Now, when you take the component that's missing, which is the spirituality, which is the sitting with a plant medicine that changes the fabric of your reality, when you use something like Ibogaine, it binds to the receptors and you actually cannot get, like the brain can't get high for a period of time. Ibogaine and the research around it is the reason why Texas just dumped an ungodly amount of funds into Ibogaine specific research for addiction, period. Because addiction and Ibogaine is the quickest, fastest way. And I have sent people, myself, my own private clients who have been opioid, right? 13, 15 years, like ruined lives, lost millions on the streets, Malibu, fancy places over here all over the globe, tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. One time with Ibogaine.
Wow.
Ibogaine, with the right set and setting integration protocols, changes
And
everything.
Ibogaine isn't like an MDMA. It's different.
Ibogaine is not the same as MDMA. MDMA is a chemical compound. Ibogaine is also a is derived from a traditional, so it is from Iboga, and it is utilized in an IV setting with a doctor. It's quite hard cardiovascularly on your heart. So it is put in a setting. There are clinics in Mexico that do this. There are clinics outside of Canada. And the reason I testified at the Senate subcommittee for emerging treatments in psychedelics for first responders and veterans is because every single person is having to leave the country to go get help because Canada won't fund research. So MDMA is different.
How much is it to get a treatment?
To go somewhere to Mexico for a 7-day thing, and you're looking at a minimum of $10,000.
Well, that's nothing if you think about people are paying up to $30 for 30 days in a private treatment here.
And that's not a treatment facility, more than likely is not going to work.
Correct. So that's what I mean. They say it takes 7 times.
That's right. But here's where things get conspiratorial. We don't genuinely want you to get better, or we would give you the research and the tools to do so. That's not how this works. Ibogaine. So what we know, I'll send you a bunch of data on Ibogaine. It's actually wild. So it is cardiovascular.
You have to take it forever?
No,
like
it's
methadone?
No, honey. Methadone also is just another way to keep somebody addicted to the system.
I know. Trust me.
I don't fuck with methadone. But I also I'm not good with the AA method or the NA method where you white knuckle through your life and you never take accountability and you tell yourself for the rest of yourself you're an addict. Because that's like saying that once an addict, always an addict. Okay. Once you're a bad person, does that mean you stay a bad person? Because by definition, once an addict, always an addict. Does that mean that when you go to prison,
bad.
That's right. So does that mean though that you say that? No, but those programs hold you in that ideology. Now, if you were to use something like Ibogaine or even psilocybin in some areas, ayahuasca, 5-MeO, DMT, right set and setting, right integration protocol, these things shift and change. I've seen it. I've worked with people who have never touched a drug, who were literally lost everything in their entire lives from 1 week doing Ibogaine, because Ibogaine binds to the brain receptors in a very different way. That's why I don't like ketamine. Ketamine has a high addiction profile. And not only that, ketamine you can overdose on. Ibogaine is done in a set and setting that you can't do on your own time. It has to be done through IV and medical professionals with leads on you.
Who manufactures it?
Ibogaine? Ibogaine is not manufactured by a pharmaceutical company. This is why Ibogaine doesn't exist in Canada, because it's not a pharmaceutical company, right? It's no different than, like, a little circle back here, and then I'll let you go here soon. It's no different than made kits. Made kits are made and advertised by CanMap. CanMap's organization by Stephanie Green, she was never a person who specialized in death. She was into delivering babies. But she's somehow allowed to advise the NIH on the death kit protocols, which are made by Pfizer. Fun fact, every single one of those drugs used in the MAID protocol is not FDA approved for killing. Yet she is allowed to fund through the government, through Health Canada, these kits that have never been tested on killing. And that's why we have cases of people living up to 137 hours after, because MAID kits are not scientifically proved, yet are allowed in our Canadian hospitals. So of course we don't use Ibogaine. That would actually clear up the actual addiction problem.
Well,
we don't want to do
money.
that.
Follow the money.
Oh, I followed it. I followed it.
The money.
Yeah.
Every
That's
conversation, follow the money.
That's my point. So that's what brings me all the way back. Why would you want to run in government if we know that it's money dominant and we know that these people, I want to love Canada again.
But I think the power of one person, I've always said this, the power of one, don't ever underestimate it.
I know, look at Hitler.
One person in Parliament who shakes things up. Now they might have to take a hit, and and I always say the first person to say it isn't the winner. It's the second or the third. It's like the first year model of a car. You don't want to be the first year model.
Yeah.
You want the second or the third.
Oh, I know. I was the first year model on Jordan Peterson talking about how somebody drowns to death when we made them. Look how well that's worked out for me. So my point is, if you want to be the breacher at the door, you're going to take the flack, but you have to understand that at least the door is open now.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So I know that I would like to see you back in government. I don't know what your plans are long term, but I would like to see you back.
I was hoping you were going to tell me what I was doing with my life. I thought I was getting arrested.
No,
I was going to jail.
Give it time. It's not out yet. CSIS only watches these phones. I just found out. It's a different thing. We'll have that conversation after.
Amazing.
This is on the computer. It's different. But I would like to see you run again. I would like to see you in again. And I would like to see you move up in the government. Whether you ever decide to do that, I would love to help you and show you and the other conservatives how to properly run a campaign, because Pierre's people don't. And if you ever do get the chance to do Joe Rogan, don't be an idiot and actually do what you should have done.
Which is what?
Go on the fucking show.
Oh, if you could get me on Joe, that would make my life a lot better.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, if I could get me on Joe, he just follows me but doesn't acknowledge me, so it's fine. It's
Joe,
a different thing.
What are you doing?
He knows what he's doing. He knows.
Let's go. Call Elsie and I. We'll come on together.
All I'm saying is I think there's a bigger play for you long term in this country, and I think you actually have a real, and I'm not saying this to be nice, because I don't really care about being nice. I care about being honest. I think that you have a real.
That's why we like each other.
Yeah, because I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to use a derogatory comment, but I'm not going to do that to you. I'm going to sit here and tell you the truth. I think that you're one of the only people that could save the country, but we have to have people like you in Parliament to do so. And right now, I don't believe we have anybody that I could, except for, I like Aaron Gunn. I do like Aaron. I've sat with him personally, got to know him a little bit. I think he has a real chance, but the only way you have a real chance is you're going to have to say something, shake things up so aggressively, so much so that they cannot turn away from it any longer. That's the truth. That's what I think.
It's a crazy time.
It is. I mean, it's definitely a time. It's wild that I'm having backdoor conversations with the United States State Department, but can't get to anybody in the Canadian Parliament right now. That's also insane.
That's weird.
It is weird, isn't it? So in saying that, if people want to actually support you and follow you along, so that if you do run again and you do decide to actually be the person that saves us from communism, how do they do that?
Well, right now, like I actually kind of fell off the face of the earth after I lost the election, because it's like I went from having 3 offices and phone numbers and emails and all of those things to actually being like, you can't find me. So I am going to have to get my website back up and running and my email back up and running. But right now I would just say it's my social media. So primarily my Instagram, which is very interesting with Instagram, because I actually don't even know what my handle is. I'll have to look, but it's at Michelle Ferreri MP, and everybody gives me trouble, but I'm like, I've been dealing with Instagram and Meta. I'm like, I need to get rid of the MP. And they're like, oh yeah, we're working on it. And that was like,
what do you mean you can't just delete it?
No.
Did you try
So,
just going in and editing yourself and see what it
yep.
does?
Doesn't let you. So
Weird.
all the MPs are having this, former MPs who didn't win are having this difficulty. So that's what it is right now. But
Okay.
hopefully it will shift. But if you just search my name, what the thing is most people, I'll leave people with this because they'll have a lot of fun with it. So I'm on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you call it, YouTube, Facebook, all those things,
Okay.
TikTok. But most people call me Michelle Ferrari. Like
Yeah.
everybody says my name wrong.
Yeah,
Well,
no, you just
Michelle
need to wear the,
Ferrari.
you should have
Well,
done the
I'll get
red
you to
lipstick.
Google her right now. You can Google her right now. She's very
Is she
famous.
good? Oh,
Yeah, she's
no.
very good.
Let me look.
She's in a different industry.
Oh, OnlyFans, huh?
And there you go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I can
So I'm
see
not
why
her.
we're, I mean, you could be.
I could. She's probably making a lot more money than I am.
For sure. For sure. And it's not being taxed the way ours is either.
Correct.
I'm just
Correct.
saying.
She's keeping it. She's keeping what she's making.
She's keeping all of what she's making,
Yeah.
because I'll bet you she's got great tax holdings.
She's got great teeth, great tax.
She's tits, all of it. I'll say it. She's got great everything. But hey, I mean, look, I said this before to you, Jasmine Lane and I have a new show, and it's one that's a little more structured with less swearing, and it's called The Quiet Part, and it's going to come out, and I think you'll be great to sit down with and
Awesome.
pull apart and have these more political focused conversations. But I do want people to support you regardless of what you're doing. And Peterborough has a weird, they're known on Netflix for, the Don't Fuck with Cats, and they're known for, drug addictions. And I would like Peterborough to come back. I would like it to come back. You laugh because you know what I'm talking about, but I would like it to
Kevin
come
Bacon
back.
of Canada. It doesn't matter where you are. Wherever you are, somebody's got some weird connection to Peterborough. It's like this weird place, man.
I know. And I appreciate you coming on and being so willing to be open. And some of the things that we discuss on the show, I do genuinely want to look into and do a follow-up on. So I'd like to have you back once I do a little bit more of a dive into that prison in Kitchener. And I'd also like to do a little bit of a dive into some of these people that we discussed, because I think it's not about saying their names, but it's about exposing the nastiness that is existing within either our government and our country, and making sure that people are aware, because you can't change things that you don't know, like you said, right? So let's make it known.
I love it, and I love what you're doing with the cutting edge research on addiction, and I think that's what drew me into you so much too. And we have a running joke of Joe Rogan, because it's like, how long into the podcast before he brings up psilocybin? How long?
I mean,
but he's doing a good job
right
on bringing awareness to it, and bringing that conversation, and I think it's great. I actually just read a book, and I'll leave it with you, even though it's an Oprah recommended book. So I know before I get blasted about that. I know. Okay. I know. But it's called The Tell.
Okay.
And it's very interesting because MDMA is in it, and it's about trauma and sexual assault, and revealing repressed memories. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, MDMA is making a
She's
move
from
for
Texas.
A reason. Yeah. I mean, look, there's so many, like Heroic Hearts Project, them and Vet Solutions. It took ex-veterans, like combat veterans. It took Navy SEALs and Army Rangers to step forward and start literally forcing this. It's taken these organizations to take Canada when nobody would treat us, because that's who treated me, was Americans. My brain injury was treated by Americans. My psychedelic experiences have been treated by Americans. My schooling has been given to me by Americans. Not once have I been helped by Canada, and every time I've had to sue Veterans Affairs into the ground, and taken years and years and years and years. And so I'm optimistic that this research, these books, these things, people can wake up and realize that we don't have to be afraid of the unknown. We don't have to be afraid of the idea of doing something different outside the box. We need to start looking at ourselves and going, what is it that we've done, and why do we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result? And so I'll give that book a read. I'd like to see it myself. But You know, I do, anytime I bring up the psychedelic conversation, I do say they are not for everyone. Not everybody is a fit for them. Psychedelics do not or should not be consumed by anybody with schizophrenia, bipolar in the family, or directly resulting. And if you are going to utilize any of these, please do it in a safe set and setting with an integration coach and with somebody who knows what they're doing. Do not use any of these with an SSRI. They're not safe. It's not medical advice. It's personal experience, anecdotal and research based. But I do say, if you are looking to change your life and you are stuck and you are struggling and you are a candidate, then there are places like Heroic Hearts Project, Vet Solution, and others that you should check out. And if you can't get a hold of them, you can get a hold of me and I can help you get the resources you need. So, in saying that, my friend, it has been such an honor to talk to somebody I genuinely and can honestly say one of the only people in the Canadian government I've ever respected. So, it is, I'm not saying that lightly. It is a big deal. And so I am grateful for the opportunity to have you, and I am looking forward to having you back.
Thanks, my friend. Keep it real.
Always. Okay, you stick with me. Everyone else, do yourself a favor before you leave. Go subscribe to the ever failing YouTube platform that we do have. And you guys can go give us a rating on Apple or Spotify, which we do recommend. And if you guys are in the market to start feeling better, being well, all of those things, Row Nutrition, Ketone IQ, XXXY, especially in what I call Welcome to Indoctrination Month, go check them out. And then when you're really ready to change your mind, change your body, and start looking after yourself, go check out Good Living. Everything's in the bio. We'll make sure that you guys know how to reach Michelle in a safe way. Don't be weird to her. Be nice to her. And if you're American, no, she can't move there. We've all tried. I will see you all next week.